The rain hadn't stopped in 2 days. It came in thin, silver lines across the ridge, pooling in ditches and whispering against the wreckage of a police SUV. Its headlights still glowed faintly through the mist, one broken, one blinking like a heartbeat refusing to quit. By the time rescuers reached the scene, the road was slick, and the forest smelled of burnt rubber and pine. That's when they saw him, a German shepherd, soaked to the bone, standing guard beside the overturned vehicle. He wouldn't move, wouldn't let anyone near the driver's side door, not even when they called his name. Deputy Eli Mercer stared at the wreck through the haze of his breath. Even from 10 yards away, he could feel the weight of it, the silence that followed a scream you didn't hear. The SUV was on its side at the bottom of the ravine, nose crumpled against the pine. Mud and leaves plastered the windshield. The rain had washed away any easy answers. "Is that?" one of the EMTs murmured, shining a flashlight toward the motionless shape by the door. The beam caught fur, dark, matted, trembling. "Yeah," Eli said quietly. "That's Ranger. Officer Tom Hale's K-9. And if Ranger was here, then Tom had to be, too." Eli slipped down the embankment, boots sinking into the slick earth. The air was thick with gasoline and something else, metallic, cold, and human. "Easy, boy," he said, lowering his voice as he approached. Ranger growled, lips curling, eyes wild under the streaks of rain. The paramedic beside him hesitated. "He's protecting someone." "Yeah," Eli muttered. "He always does." The SUV groaned as Eli reached the driver's side. The door was twisted, windows shattered inward. His heart kicked against his ribs when he saw the familiar sleeve of a patrol jacket. Tom's. He swallowed hard and looked up the slope where the emergency lights blinked red against the fog. "Get the cutter down here." As rescuers rushed to set up equipment, Eli crouched beside Ranger. The dog's chest heaved with shallow breaths, his paw pressed against the mud-streaked arm sticking out of the window. It wasn't loyalty anymore. It was grief. "Hey, buddy," Eli whispered. "You did good." Ranger blinked once, then looked back toward the dark woods, as if waiting for something Eli couldn't see. They got Tom out after 20 long minutes. He was alive, barely. Broken ribs, concussion, internal bleeding. The flight medic said it was a miracle. But Eli didn't feel relief. Not really. Not when he saw what was in Tom's hand as they lifted him out. A small child's shoe, half buried in mud. No one said anything for a long time. By sunrise, the wreck had been cleared, the road blocked off with yellow tape. The forest, normally quiet, seemed to hum with a low unease. Eli stayed behind, standing by his cruiser, while Ranger lay under a thermal blanket in the back seat. The dog's eyes were open but unfocused. Sheriff Danvers pulled up, his coat half-buttoned, steam rising from his coffee. "You look like hell." Eli didn't answer. Danvers sighed. "Tom's in surgery. They said he kept asking for the kid." Eli turned sharply. "What kid?" Danvers frowned. "The one from the call. Dispatch said he was responding to a missing person report. Little girl, 7 years old, from the trailer park off Route 9. Name's Lila Greeley." Eli's stomach dropped. He hadn't known. Any sign of her? Not yet. Tom's dash cam was fried in the crash. But if he had her shoe, he must have found her trail. Danvers took a sip from his cup, watching the fog shift between the trees. "Something about this don't sit right." Eli glanced at Ranger through the glass. "You think someone ran him off the road?" "I think," Danvers said slowly, "Tom saw something he wasn't supposed to." That night, the town of Reedridge Hollow was drowned in rain. The diner lights flickered against the wet pavement. The radio murmured old blues, and everyone who knew Tom Hale said the same thing. He was a good cop, maybe too good. Eli sat at the counter, nursing his third coffee. Ranger lay by his boots, bandaged and quiet. The waitress, a tired woman with kind eyes named Marie, leaned in. "Word as they found a second set of tire tracks near the crash," she said. "Wide ones, like from a truck." Eli looked up sharply. "Who told you that?" "Doesn't matter who. Just be careful." She hesitated, then added, "Tom stopped by here last week. Looked nervous. Kept asking if I'd seen a silver pickup around after dark. Eli frowned. Why? Maurice shrugged. Didn't say. But he wasn't himself. Looked like he hadn't slept in days. Later, back at his apartment, Eli sat in the dark. The only sound was Ranger's breathing and the ticking of the wall clock. He turned the small shoe over in his hands, the mud long since dried to a dark crust. Where's the girl, Ranger? He murmured. The dog's ears twitched. Eli's phone buzzed. A message from the sheriff's office. Found something. Come to the crash site. Now. Eli grabbed his jacket and flashlight, heart pounding. Ranger was already on his feet, waiting by the door. The forest was different at night. Quieter, heavier. The rain had stopped, but fog still clung to the pines like breath. When Eli arrived, he saw 2 deputies standing by the ravine. Their floodlights cut across the mud where the SUV had been. What is it? Eli called out. Deputy Jenna Brooks turned toward him, her face pale. We found tracks. Small ones. Barefoot. Eli's pulse quickened. The girl? Maybe. They lead into the woods. But here's the weird part. She pointed the base of a tree where the prints ended, next to a set of adult boots, half erased by rain. Eli knelt, tracing the edge of one print with his flashlight. Someone was with her. Jenna nodded. And not Tom. His boot treads are different. Ranger whined softly behind them, pulling at the leash toward the trees. Eli tightened his grip. You smell her, boy. The dog's tail flicked once. Then he bolted. Ranger. Eli chased him into the darkness, branches slapping his face, the flashlight beam jerking across trunks. He caught glimpses, flashes of fur mud fog, and then a sound, a low, mournful whine. He followed it until the light fell on something that made his stomach twist. A wooden cross, hand-carved, planted in the ground beside a shallow patch of disturbed earth. Eli dropped to his knees. The cross was new, too new, though it still smelled of sap. Ranger circled it once, then lay down beside it, the same way he had at the crash site. Eli stared at the ground, rain dripping from his cap. Dear God, he whispered. They dug until sunrise. But there was no body, only a small blanket, damp and folded neatly, with a charm bracelet tucked inside, engraved with the name Lila. By the next morning, rumors spread faster than the storm clouds. Some said Tom had found a girl alive, then crashed trying to save her. Others said she was already dead, and he was covering for someone. Eli didn't know what to believe, but he couldn't shake the way Ranger kept staring toward the woods, like he knew something no one else did. He went to visit Tom at the hospital. The man was pale, bandaged, barely conscious. Machines beeped softly around him. Eli sat by his bed, the shoe resting on the table between them. Tom, he said quietly, they found her blanket, but not her. Tom's eyelids fluttered. His voice was a rasp. Don't trust them. Eli leaned closer. Who? Tom's hand twitched weakly toward the window. Not who you think. Before Eli could ask more, a nurse entered, telling him visiting hours were over. Eli stood, glancing back one last time, but Tom's eyes were already closed. Outside, the night wind cut cold through his jacket. He lit a cigarette, something he hadn't done in years, and watched the smoke curl into the dark. Down in the parking lot, a silver pickup truck idled under a broken streetlight. The driver's face was shadowed, but Eli caught the faint glow of a cigarette tip. When the headlights flicked on and the truck rolled away, Ranger's low growl filled the silence. Eli dropped his own cigarette, crushing it under his boot. Yeah, he muttered. I saw it too. The next morning, the fog lifted slow and reluctant, like it didn't want to reveal what the night had left behind. Eli hadn't slept. He sat on the tailgate of his truck by the crash site, a thermos of black coffee steaming in his hands. Ranger lying beside it with his head on Eli's boot. The forest beyond them was still, too still, the kind of stillness that felt wrong. Deputy Jenna Brooks arrived in her cruiser, boots crunching over gravel. She was young, sharp-eyed, the kind of cop who didn't scare easy. But this morning, she looked shaken. They finished processing the site, she said. No body, no blood trail, nothing except a blanket and that charm bracelet. Eli nodded, eyes fixed on the tree line. Someone wanted us to find that cross, he said. You think it's a message? I think it's a warning. At the sheriff's office, the air smelled of stale coffee and wet coats. Sheriff Danvers was leaning over the map table, tracing the area where the crash happened with a thick finger. According to the logs, he said, Tom left his patrol zone at 1943, no authorization. He turned off his radio 5 minutes later. Why? Jenna asked. That's what we're trying to figure out. Danvers glanced at Eli. You knew Tom better than anyone. He ever do something like that before? Eli hesitated. Not unless he had a reason. Danvers nodded grimly. The state's sending investigators tomorrow. They'll want statements, dash cam recovery, the works. Until then, no one touches that site. Eli's jaw tightened. Then what about the girl? Danvers' eyes hardened. We'll find her. But I don't want anyone stirring up panic. After the meeting, Eli walked out into the parking lot. Ranger sat in passenger seat, watching him through the glass, nose pressed to the window. There was something haunted in his eyes, something Eli hadn't seen since Afghanistan. A dog that had seen too much. Eli opened the door and scratched behind his ear. You're not letting this go, are you, buddy? Ranger whined softly, pawing at the door handle. All right, Eli said, starting the engine. Then neither am I. They drove out past a ridge road, past where the asphalt turned to dirt and the forest swallowed the sky. The woods here were old, older than the town. The trees leaned close, roots tangled like veins beneath the soil. Eli parked by the drainage ditch, stepped out and let Ranger lead. The dog moved slow, nose low to the ground, tail stiff. Every few feet, he stopped, sniffed, then kept moving. After half a mile, the forest opened into a clearing. An abandoned hunting cabin sat in the middle, windows boarded, chimney broken. Eli's flashlight caught a glint near the porch, a tire track, fresh in the mud. He knelt beside it, wide treads, same as the ones by the crash. The silver pickup. Good boy, Eli whispered. We're close. He pushed the door open. The smell hit him first, mold, wet wood, something metallic underneath. Ranger growled, fur bristling. Inside, dust motes hung in the air like suspended ash. A table stood in the center of the room with photographs scattered across it, all of children. School portraits, missing posters, snapshots torn in half. And in the middle of them, one photograph stopped Eli cold. Lila Greeley, her face, freckled, smiling, was pinned to the wood with a hunting knife. Eli's breath caught. Jesus! He heard something behind him creak. He spun, gun drawn. Nothing, just the cabin groaning under the weight of silence. Ranger's ears flicked toward the back door, low growl rumbling deep in his chest. Eli crept forward, every step measured. He pushed the door open, revealing a set of muddy footprints leading into the trees. Small ones, a child's, and beside them, bigger ones. Heavy, the same boots as before. They followed the prints until the woods began to thin, where a fog broke over a narrow stream. The sound of water masked their footsteps. Ahead, something glinted between the rocks, a toy charm, shaped like a star. Eli picked it up. It matched the bracelet they'd found. She was here, he whispered. Not long ago. Ranger barked once, sharp and sudden, pointing toward the other side of the creek. Eli raised his flashlight. A figure stood there, motionless, half hidden behind a tree, tall, wearing a raincoat, watching him. Hey! Eli shouted, stepping into the water. Sheriff's Department. Don't move. But the figure turned and bolted into the fog. Ranger, go! The dog leapt ahead, bounding over the stream. Eli splashed after him, branches whipping across his arms. The figure moved fast, too fast, ducking between trees like smoke. Then, suddenly, the ground vanished beneath Eli's feet. He fell hard into a shallow ravine, pain ripping through his shoulder. When he looked up, the figure was gone. Only Ranger remained at the edge, barking into the distance. Damn it, Eli muttered, dragging himself up. They knew these woods. He limped back toward the cabin, heart hammering. Whoever it was, they'd been watching, waiting. and they'd left that photo for someone to find. Back at the station, Eli spread the photographs across his desk. Jenna stood beside him, her arms crossed, eyes scanning the faces. "These kids," she said softly, "they're all local. Every one of them disappeared in the last 10 years. None of them were ever found," Eli said, "except for one, a boy named Travis Halloran. He turned up dead near the quarry 3 years ago. Tom worked that case. Then maybe this is what he stumbled into," Jenna said, something that never stopped. Eli nodded slowly, and someone made sure he didn't talk. Later that night, Eli drove back to the hospital. The hallway smelled of antiseptic and rain. Tom was awake this time, pale and trembling but conscious. When Eli stepped in, Tom's eyes darted toward him, wild, frightened. "They followed me," he whispered. "The truck, silver. I tried to lose them." "Who, Tom?" Eli pressed. "Who's in the truck?" Tom's gaze flickered toward the doorway. Paranoid. "You can't trust." The monitor beeped faster. His breathing hitched. Eli reached for his arm. "You can't trust who?" Tom's voice broke. "Danvers." Eli froze. "The sheriff?" Tom nodded weakly, eyes glazing. He's one of them." The monitor flatlined. Eli shouted for a nurse, but it was too late. The room filled with alarms, bodies rushing in, hands pulling him back. Ranger whined from the hallway, scratching at the door. Eli stood there, numb, the echo of Tom's last words replaying in his head. "He's one of them." The next morning, the town buzzed with news of Tom's death. Official cause: cardiac arrest due to internal injuries. Unofficially, Eli didn't believe a word. He waited until nightfall, then drove back to the ridge. The sheriff's car wasn't there. Danvers was home by now, probably asleep, trusting his badge to keep him safe. Eli parked by the tree-line, turned off the lights, and waited. The moon hung low, pale and tired. Ranger lay beside him, ears pricked. Then, just before midnight, headlights appeared in the distance. A silver pickup, rolling slow along the dirt road. Eli's pulse quickened. He watched as it stopped by the same clearing, engine idling. A figure climbed out, broad shoulders, sheriff's coat. Danvers. He walked to the edge of the woods and knelt by the same patch of ground where the cross had been. Then he did something Eli couldn't quite believe. He pulled the cross out, dropped into the truck bed, and began digging. Eli's hand went to his holster. "What the hell are you doing?" Danvers. Ranger tensed beside him, ready to move. But Eli didn't move yet. Not until he saw what Danvers unearthed. A small, dirt-stained backpack, zipped shut. Danvers glanced around, then opened it. The light from his phone caught something inside. Bones. Small. Fragile. Human. Eli's stomach lurched. The sheriff zipped it shut, loaded it into the truck, and drove off into the night. Eli sat frozen for a long time after the taillights vanished. The rain began again, soft at first, then harder, washing the tracks clean. Ranger let out a low whine, pressing against Eli's leg. "Yeah," Eli whispered. "I saw it too." He looked back toward the empty hole in the ground where the cross had been. The mud was caving in, water pooling inside. Something glinted faintly in the puddle, a police badge half buried. Eli knelt, pulling it out. His chest tightened when he read the engraving. Deputy Jenna Brooks. The sun never truly rose over Reed's Ridge Hollow that morning, just a dull gray light that seemed to come from nowhere. Eli hadn't gone home. He sat in his truck outside the diner, badge in one pocket, Jenna's blood-stained one in the other. Ranger was restless, pacing in the back seat. Every sound, a truck engine, a closing door, made him growl. Eli's thoughts spun like a broken reel. Danvers had been digging up children's remains. Jenna's badge was buried there too. And Tom had died naming the sheriff. But why bury a fellow deputy's badge? Unless she wasn't dead when it went into the ground. Inside the diner, Marie was pouring coffee for the early crowd. Her eyes widened when she saw Eli. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," she said softly. He slid onto a stool. Has Sheriff Danvers been in today? She shook her head. Not since yesterday. But I heard his truck leave around 3 a.m. headed toward the quarry road. Eli felt his pulse quicken. You sure? Marie frowned. Eli, what's going on? He met her eyes. You ever wonder why kids keep vanishing around this town, and no one ever finds a damn thing? Her hands froze on the coffee pot. I stopped wondering a long time ago, she said quietly, because the wrong answer's worse than no answer at all. The quarry sat on the far edge of town, a scar in the landscape, water pool black and still at the bottom, deep enough to swallow a truck hole. Eli parked at the overlook and waited. The fog was thicker here, swirling like smoke over cliffs. At 7:12 a.m., the silver pickup appeared, crawling up the access road. Eli grabbed his camera and zoomed in through the lens. Danvers stepped out, still in uniform, carrying a metal case. He opened the tailgate and pulled something out, the backpack from last night. He carried it to the cliff edge, opened the case. Inside was a stack of papers, missing person reports, each one stamped closed. Then Danvers did something Eli didn't expect. He dropped them all into the quarry, one by one, letting the wind scatter the pages like ghosts. Eli snapped photo after photo, heart-hammering. When Danvers turned toward his truck, he froze. His eyes locked on Eli's car, half hidden behind a boulder. Even from 50 yards away, Eli saw the recognition. And the smile. The chase tore through the back roads like thunder. Danvers' truck roared ahead, fishtailing through mud. Eli floored the accelerator, siren silent. Ranger braced against the seat, barking furiously. At the intersection by the old church, Danvers cut left, tires screaming. Eli followed, headlights slicing through the mist. They hit the ridge road, the same stretch where Tom had crashed. Eli pulled closer, trying to bump the rear tire. But Danvers swerved, slamming into his side. Metal shrieked. Both vehicles skidded, spinning toward the guardrail. For a second, everything slowed, the world tilting, the rain, the flash of light. Then Eli's truck slammed sideways into the embankment. Airbags burst. Ranger yelped, thrown against the seat. Through the cracked windshield, Eli saw Danvers' truck stop ahead. The sheriff climbed out, gun in hand, walking toward him. Eli's door jammed. He kicked it open, coughing smoke. Put it down, Danvers, he shouted. It's over. The sheriff's eyes were cold. You think you know what you're walking into, boy. I know you killed them, Eli said. Those kids. Jenna, you buried them out there like they didn't matter. Danvers laughed, low and bitter. You think this started with me? You think Reed's Ridge was ever clean? I just kept the rot from spreading. Eli raised his gun. By killing children? They were already dead. Danvers roared, long before they disappeared. Nobody cared, not the parents, not the town. You want to know the truth? We took them away. Out of those trailers, out of those broken homes. We gave them peace. Eli stared, disbelief hardening into rage. You buried peace in shallow graves. Danvers leveled his gun. You don't walk away from this, Mercer. You start digging in Reed's Ridge, you'll drown in it. A growl cut through the rain. Ranger lunged from behind the wreck, teeth bared. Danvers fired, one shot, echoing off the ridge. The dog hit him full force. Both went down in the mud. Eli ran forward, heart in his throat. The sheriff's gun clattered away. Ranger had him pinned, jaws locked on his arm. Danvers screamed, thrashing. Eli raised his weapon, hesitated. Ranger's fur was slick with blood. His or Danvers, Eli couldn't tell. Ranger, Eli shouted. Heel! The dog didn't move. He wasn't listening anymore. Years of training, gone. All that remained was instinct. Danvers managed to grab the drop gun, turn it toward the dog. 2 shots. Silence. Ranger collapsed beside him. Eli fired. Once. Clean. The sheriff dropped without a word, eyes wide open to the gray sky. The rain started again, slow, steady. Eli fell to his knees beside Ranger, hands shaking. Stay with me, boy, he whispered. Come on. Ranger's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, they were clear again. Soft, trusting. Eli pressed his hand to the wound, but the blood kept coming. You did good. You saved me. The dog exhaled once, a long, trembling breath, and went still. Eli's throat closed. He buried his face against Ranger's fur. The smell of rain and mud and gunpowder. The sound of silence where loyalty used to be. When backup arrived, they found 2 bodies in a ruined road. The sheriff's crimes came to light over the next week. Dozens of files, falsified records, cover-ups stretching back years. But the truth didn't heal anything. Tom's death was ruled a murder. Jenna's remains were found deep under the quarry, buried with the others. And Lila Greeley? Alive. They found her 2 towns over, half-starved, hiding in an abandoned shed. She wouldn't speak, wouldn't look anyone in the eye. But when Eli showed her Ranger's picture, she reached out and smiled for the first time. A month later, the department held a small service behind the station. No flags, no speeches. Just Eli, Tom's widow, and a simple headstone that read, Ranger, faithful partner, forever watchful. Eli placed Ranger's collar on the grave, the tag still scratched from the wreck. He stayed long after everyone left, the wind moving softly through the trees. He remembered the night of the crash, how Ranger had stood guard beside the wreck, refusing to leave. Now he understood why. Because something inside the dog had known that loyalty sometimes means staying until the very end, even when it kills you. The sky broke open then. Sunlight for the first time in weeks. It caught on the wet grass, the metal tag, the quiet gravestone. Eli stood, took one last look, and whispered, Rest now, boy. You kept your promise. He turned and walked back toward the cruiser, boots crunching on gravel, the morning wind at his back. Behind him, the graveyard was still. But if anyone had been close enough to listen, they might have sworn they heard a faint sound, a soft bark carried on the wind, fading into the woods of Reed Ridge Hollow.